Welcome to Lab 3, Base Layers. Here is your mission. You have just been hired as the new assistant to the GIS specialist on the Payette National Forest. Congratulations. They've been planning a large-scale multiple-discipline project since 2006 and have started to implement some of the treatments. Up to this point, the potential vegetation groups, or PVGs, have been used to assess the condition of the fuels and determine if treatments will meet the objectives across disciplines: wildlife, fish, forest, human, etc. PVGs, however, cannot estimate potential fire behavior and effects. As part of a justification and validation of these fuel treatments, you have been tasked to use land fire data to model potential fire behavior across the landscape under different treatment scenarios. The first step in this process is to calibrate the current land fire layers so they reflect the actual conditions on the ground. Before we can get to that, though, we need to gather and organize a variety of different base layers. You're going to begin by downloading the Brundage Bear Basin Project Area data from bblearn. You'll want to unzip that data and save it to your class folder, which preferably is going to be on the C drive in a folder for 407 and Lesson 3. So you'll copy and paste, or you'll unzip the BBB data folder here. The first thing we want to do is get somewhat familiar with the area. So you're going to go to Google Earth, and you're going to select Open, File, and then Open, and navigate to your data folder and select Project Boundary. That'll get added to your temporary places, and it'll zoom you into where this project is. And for us to see underneath this project, we need to change the symbology. So I'm going to expand this down until I see this polygon. I'm going to right-click on it, select Properties, Style and Color, change this to Outlined, and change the width here to 2, and the color to something visible. And as the directions say, I'm going to practice my Google Earth skills. I'm going to zoom out, see where I am in Idaho, make sure I can answer that question. And I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to change my angle here. This is going to help me see what the topography is like. And there's a link for a video in your lab that will give you some tips for navigating around Google Earth if you're not very familiar with it. So we can get an idea that we have a ridge here, and then we have the valley down here. Looking at the vegetation composition a little bit, just kind of getting a feel for what we're going to be working with for the next month or two. So some of the things that you are going to be looking specifically for are roads, what the topography is, where the urban interface is. I'm going to click the button R. That'll change my view to be straight up and down. I'm going to zoom out. So I see I have a lake here. Here's McCall. What kind of recreation we have. We've got a ski resort that's right up here, Brundage. Different water systems and vegetation covers. So all of those things, it's important to absorb what our project area looks like and make just a couple notes, and so you'll answer that question with a little brief paragraph about what you observed in this project area. So next we're going to download the Payette National Forest perimeter. As much as possible in these labs, I'm going to try and direct you to where the data can be accessed so that you can get it for future projects, either in this class or outside of this class. So to begin, I'm going to start a search for National Forest Geodatabase. And the first one that comes up here is what we're looking for. And there are several different layers that are available. You can peruse the different options. You might want to use these for future projects as well. I'm looking for the Ranger District boundaries. And I'm going to download these in a geodatabase file format. So click on this link and it'll download here. Once that's downloaded, you would unzip the contents of that folder and put it in your Lesson 3 folder, and here it'll be this geodatabase. Next, we're going to look for the state of Idaho. We're going to use the state of Idaho as a reference shape for our future map making. You're going to search for United States shapefile. I found that the Forest Service boundaries were available in geodatabase, but the states were only available in shapefile. So we will pick on this first link here and select state, and then select 20-meter zip. So you're going to download the zip file, again unzip it or copy the contents of that zip file into your Lesson 3 folder. Those are all the states. Next, we're looking for the mountain peaks. This is something that we're going to use for our land fire calibration process. So we're going to do another search for USA Mountain Peaks GIS. And we'll find that here. And then we'll select download. And once that zip file is downloaded, we will again copy the contents into our Lesson 3 folder. There's our mountain peaks right there. Now we're looking for our 1 and 2400 meter quads. These are going to come from inside Idaho, similar to how you downloaded some information for the previous lab. From inside Idaho, we're going to go to Apps and Topographic Maps. And now that we know roughly where our project area is, we're going to zoom in to that area, roughly the McCall area. And we're going to change our layer option here. We're looking for the finer resolution map. And these maps are going to be useful for our analysis of vegetation and topography, and also for display purposes. So we'll be downloading 9 topo maps around the Brundage Bear Basin area, starting with Brundage Mountain, right there. So we'll do 3 across and 3 down. Brundage Mountain, Granite Lake, Box Lake, Meadows, McCall, and Fitsum Summit. So for each of these, you're going to click this download button, and then you're going to copy the contents or unzip the contents into a topo folder here for Lesson 3. And then this row as well. No Business, Lake Fork, and Paddy Flat. The next layer that we'll be downloading is some fire progression for the rapid fire in 2015. And we'll be needing this information for, again, some higher level calibration for our land fire data. So we're going to go to nifty.ftp. This is a very useful site, has lots of great information on it, but occasionally the site goes down. And so if it is currently not working, then please contact me and I will make the data available to you. So we're going to go to incident-specific data and select Great Basin, 2015 incidents, and rapid. Now we don't need all of the layers for this, so we'll go to GIS and then data. Now we don't need all of the different progression days. We're only looking for a couple. These are the ones that we'll be using. So in this 816 folder, you would select this zip file and you download that. From this zip file, again, you would copy and paste, or you'd unzip the contents into your Lesson 3 folder for the rapid fire. Back to the parent directory. On 8/17, you're only interested in the 2147 perimeter, and you're looking for the polygon. So these are points and lines. You're looking for the polygon. So download this zip file. Now we're going to skip 8/18 and go to 8/19. Now note this layer was mislabeled. It says 8/18, but it's actually produced on the 19th. So we're going to download this polygon. We'll just need to make sure that when we start to add this to ArcMap that we'll change this label so we don't get confused. So download this 8/18 file. And 8/20, polygon, and 8/21, and we'll select the 0700 polygon file zip file. And put the contents in the rapid folder in Lesson 3. Our final download is going to be from the MTBS, Monitoring Trends in Burn Severity. So we're going to go to mtbs.gov. And we'll select Get Data via Direct Download. MTBS creates post-fire information for fires roughly larger than 1,000 acres. Because of its validation process, it takes several years for MTBS maps to be created. So our first task is going to be to select the state of Idaho. And then we'll change the date range for just the year 2015. And then we'll sort by fire name, and we will find the rapid fire. Check the box, scroll down, select Download One Files. And again, when this downloads, you will take the contents and put them in your rapid folder. You can make another folder here for MTBS, and that'll contain several different layers and KMZ files. So now we're ready to move on to organizing and exploring the data. The first thing we need to do is to create a geodatabase. So this project, like many others that exist out there, was started before the widespread use of geodatabases. And it's common that long-term projects have data that gets really scattered. Lots of people have worked on the project, and there often is not one general source for the information, which is certainly what I found with this project area. And so when you are starting a project that's similar to this, you may have to do quite a lot of hunting to find the data that you need, and your job initially is to start to organize it. Since you're going to create a lot of additional layers, you want to start with the best organization as possible. Arc Catalog is always a good place to start when you're organizing GIS data. So we're going to open Arc Catalog. You can use your search bar and search for Arc Catalog here. I've got it opened already. And then you'll navigate to Lesson 3, and we'll start to look at our BBB data folder. So the first thing we're going to do is right-click on Lesson 3. We want our new geodatabase to be located in Lesson 3. We're going to select New, File Geodatabase. And we'll label it BBB Project. Now we are going to start to populate it. So we will go to our data folder, and here are the project treatments. We'll right click, select Export to Geodatabase, and for our output location, we're going to choose the project. So you just click on it once and it's going to add, and we're going to label this BBB treatments and select OK. So that task is completed successfully. We will do the same thing with our project boundary. Now, for some reason, when I first tried this, it looked like it would complete fine, but then my geodatabase was empty still. So if that does happen to you, just close ArcCatalog, start it again, and try it, and for me at least, it seemed to work that second time. So now I have my 2 layers added to my geodatabase, and as you can see from right now, it looks like you haven't really saved yourself much work. You have files here as shape files, files here as geodatabases, but as we add data, this will really help our organization. And if we were to really be sharing this or working on it with multiple different people, then having it in a geodatabase would save a lot of space and a lot of time for transferring. Now we'll do the same thing with BBB macro plots and put that into the geodatabase. We are now ready to add our data to an ArcMap project. So start a new ArcMap project and save it to your Lesson 3 folder. We're going to start by adding our BBB files, add data, navigate to your folder. Now just to remind you, if you aren't connected to the proper folder, you need to do this connection. Locate the folder you want to connect to, and that will bring it into your look-in drop-down list. So I have my folder here in Lesson 3, BBB data, and I'm going to be adding the data from my geodatabase. So I'll just highlight all 3 of these. And to begin, I'll leave my macro plots the same, and I'm going to change the symbology for my project boundary. Double click here or click once and change this to width of 2. And no fill color, black outline is fine for now. And for BB treatments, we have a couple other things to do. So I'm going to go to properties, and in order to make the symbology match the one on the map for the environmental assessment, I'm going to make sure that I have that open. So if you can, please navigate to that environmental assessment document, and this is page number 211, and we're going to try and replicate this as much as we can. So first I'm going to go to categories. Instead of showing just features, we're going to click categories, and then we're going to select display C. So this is going to show the options for alternative C, and I'm going to select add all values. I'm going to uncheck all other values and match this as much as possible. This one is not represented in the map from the environmental assessment, so I'm going to make this one gray with a darker outline. And then this one, if I look over here, intermediate is a brown. Pre-commercial thin is a seafoamy green color. And RX burn is spotted. So for this one, I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to choose cropland. I'll change the outline to a darker gray, and the inside spots I'll change to more of an orange or reddish. That looks like it about matches. And click OK. Next, we'll move on to adding our ranger district boundaries. Now for this layer, we are only interested in the Payette National Forest. And if we were to zoom out here, you can see that we have the boundaries for all the national forests in the country. So we're going to open the attribute table and organize by forest name. Scroll down to Payette, and there should be 5 polygons for the Payette National Forest, and you can see those right here. Close my attributes table and right click, and for selection, create a layer from the selected features, and I'll call this Payette National Forest. And then I'll remove this one. I'll do the same thing with the states. So this is the shapefile for all of the states. Again, we're only interested in Idaho here. Highlight Idaho, close, selection, create layer from selected features, and remove all the states and relabel this Idaho. Now Idaho and the Payette National Forest, those are mostly just for reference. So we'll end up using those later on in the exercise as we start to display our maps. So for now, I'm going to turn those off and continue on with adding layers. I might zoom back into my project area here. Now we'll be adding our maps. So I will add all of them. That's fine for now. Now it looks pretty messy here. So we have a little bit of symbology work to do. You're going to open up each one of these files, or just stretch out the different colors, and you're going to make number 1, or the white box, you're going to make it no color. And that's going to take away that white outline. So for the first one, here's the second one. And now that they're all complete, it looks more like a seamless map across the area. Now we'll add our rapid fire progression. So picking up each of those days. Oh yes, and I am going to start to organize. I've got lots of data going on here in several different categories, so let's try and organize this a little bit. Right-clicking on layers, you can select new group layer. I'm going to call this one Topo, and I'm going to highlight all my topo maps and drag them up here, put them in my topo folder. That way we can expand and collapse those depending on whether we're using them or not, and they're not taking up so much space in our project. And because those are a base layer, I'm going to drag them back down to the bottom. And I'm going to make one more folder, new group layer, for rapid progression. and I will put these files in there. Now if you recall, we needed to make a correction to one of these layers. This 818 perimeter was actually collected on the 19th. So we'll fix that right now. And our final layer to add is the mountain peaks. Now for some reason when I go to add this, it's not showing up in my add data options, but if I go to our catalog, I see my mountain peaks is here. So it's a layer package is what this is called. I will figure out why it's not showing up, but for now we can double click on it and it will add it to our project. So there are those mountain peaks. Now that we have all these base layers downloaded, we're ready to move on to downloading landfire data. For specific directions and a little bit of background on landfire data, you can refer to the How to Download Landfire Data PDF that's available on the Lesson 3 webpage. I'm going to be using the LFDAT download option because I'm able to have that most current version of LFDAT on my computer. To begin, I'm going to zoom out to the extent that I want to download data for. I'm going to be downloading landfire data that covers both the project and the rapid fire, as well as these macro plots. So now I'll demonstrate the process for downloading data from landfire.gov. To begin with, we need to make sure that our display here is in decimal degrees. So to get there, we will go to View and Data Frame Properties. On the General tab, make sure that the display is set to decimal degrees. And we need to go to landfire.gov and select Get Data. And just click in the general region of the map, somewhere in central Idaho. And this may take a second to load. I'll go to the data world over here and select Download Data. And I'm going to check the boxes that I'd like to download. I'm looking for the 13 and the 40 field models. I'm not looking for the LCP files. And can be bulk density, height, cover, and then I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom for the topographic. Now I'm going to select this XY coordinate, and here's where our arc map is going to come in. I'm going to hold my cursor over the top area of my project, and my top latitude is 45.02. Bottom latitude beyond the rapid fire is 44.79. And to the right, negative 115.81. And to the left, negative 116.231. And once I have that entered correctly, I will select Add Area. This will bring me to the data distribution site where I need to modify my data request. So this is a very important step here. It makes sure that the data that you download is in the right projection, which is a major source of error. change this from NAT83 to best fit UTM. And if I needed to change any of the layers that I had selected for download, I could do that at this time. I'm happy with what I've selected. And I'll click Save, Changes, and Return to Summary. Just to be sure, I should have 10 layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Got all 10 of those. Now I'm going to go through the download process. The method that I use, I just click Download for all 10, and the windows pile up, and then I address them as they come. Once they are extracted, I will go to this window and select Open, and then I just copy the folder itself inside the zip file and paste it into my Landfire folder, and then close that window and move on to the next. So now we can add our Landfire data to our project. Right click on Layers, select New Group Layers, and call this Landfire. And we can either add it the old-fashioned way using our Add Data button, or you can use the LFDAT toolbar to add it, which automatically assigns the proper attributes. So I'll go through this, can be bulk density, and we'll use, so for each one we'll select its unique layer to be displayed, and that'll properly adjust the colors and distribution. Canopy base height, canopy cover, canopy height, existing vegetation type is a little trickier. There's lots that we can choose from. So we'll go with subclass here. And it usually auto picks the proper display, but we just specify as well BFM 40. So this takes a little bit of the guesswork out of how to display each layer. And for these next topographic ones, they just are displayed by value. Now that we have all of our Landfire layers displayed, I'm going to go ahead and shrink them up again. Oh, it looks like I need to add these layers to my Landfire folder. Just drag them right in there. And now this is ready for you to take your screen capture and submit for your part 1, and you are all ready to go for part 2.